Very warm afternoon for everyone present over here. Thank you for being here with us on this Fireside chat in the Internet 2.0 conference in Dubai. We are going to talk about a topic which often carries a negative connotation, but we are here to discuss the positive potential that it has in the market. So the topic is about the silver lining of recession and how it sparks innovation. So before we start, maybe Vishaka, you could just give us a walkthrough as to what is recession in a layman term, which will help people understand better so that let's get started by discussing about recession.
So thank you, Amrish, for giving me that opportunity. So yes, you correctly said that this is a word that has a negative connotation. I was also surprised when I got to know that perma-crisis was coined as the word for the year in 2022. It's a very negative portmanteau. However, I see recession as an opportunity. Now, to define what recession is first, in layman's terms, it's a reduction in the spend capacity of a normal customer. So, given that 2020 was a pandemic followed by 2021, people had a psychological shift in the spends, and they were spending recklessly because they were out of their homes. They got that they got into that new shopping routine, which created kind of inflation across the globe. And now the government is trying to correct the market. Definitely, whenever there is such a thing like inflation, there always something that comes next is the market correction, which causes recession. So definitely the spend capacity of the customers will reduce, one, because of inflation, and second, due to the corrective measures that the government will introduce. So maybe you can talk more about the causes of recession, Amrish.
Sure. So the primary causes for a recession is either inflation or financial crisis. To give you a recent example, financial crisis had happened back in 2005 in US, where there were debt ceiling problems and mortgage problems, which led to a huge financial crisis which impacted the entire global market. And inflation, recession due to inflation, is something that is happening right now. How do I put it forward? So inflation in terms of the purchasing power, right? The purchasing power of the customers get down, and in fact, it has a very bad impact in the entire ecosystem, because in the entire ecosystem, all the businesses are interconnected. At the end of the day, it's the customers that play the vital role in the entire journey. So maybe if you could shed some light on how do you approach when you anticipate a recession, or when you are in a recession, what will you be doing in a recession as a company owner or a decision maker in a big company?
So one thing that we need to make sure is we all are proactive. If we are proactive and look this not as a problem, rather a trigger of opportunity coming in the market, I think we are done. So let's understand what recession is impacted so that we can deal and figure out an approach towards recession, that how we can, face it and come out in flying colors with this thing. So if I say the impact is more in terms of costs, all the costs have increased. Whatever I was able to do with $1 before, I might need 1.5 or 1.8 US dollars for the same thing. Second thing is the cost of capital has also increased. Today I cannot go and find the funding from different VCs and PEs. It's like the dry powder in the market is just reducing, which was 775 billion US dollars in 2022, has now come down to 448 US dollars in 2023. So this has really increased the cost of capital. I cannot look for more opportunities in terms of inorganic growth. So yes, there is a challenge. If we can control the costs, if we can think about more innovative solutions that new investors will still be ready to fund for, we can face this problem. The second thing this recession has impacted is the customers. Today, there is not only a reduction in the number of customers, but there is also increase in the sales cycle. Earlier, it used to take us 30 days to convert a potential customer to a customer. Today, it is more than a half year, like it's more than 6 months sometimes. So these two things are definitely impacted, and they have reduced the cash inflows in the company. And third is the sales operation. The sales operations strategy that was before cannot be the same which is today. So to deal with all of these things, we need to come up with a different strategy in terms of offering. We need to adapt our offering strategy to this new period of recession. All the procurement teams who were procuring different services before now are wanting to reduce the cost. They only want to look for services which are very, very important for the organizations, without which the organizations cannot survive. So for that reason, we have to be updated with the latest customer feedback. We need to take the feedback on a daily basis and come up with solutions which are specifically focused on those needs. We cannot just go to the customer and say, okay, we will reduce the prices. Even though if we are making high margins, we cannot just go and reduce the price for the same offerings. We need to push something out of those offerings so that our price integrity is still saved. And hence, we need to come up with solutions specifically designed for the customer. We need to segmentize our customers who are willing to pay higher prices for the inevitable services versus who are willing to pay, or who are willing to give up the services at all because they cannot take that pressure. So then we need to focus on these high pricing customers, which will bring us more of annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue. So this is something that we need to change in our offering approach. We need to change something in our monetizing approach. Instead of saying that we'll give you discounts, maybe we should offer them loyalty credits. Maybe we should offer them some continual subscriptions. Instead of making it transactional basis, we can do a subscription model. So we need to come up with solutions that are more designed in terms of more customer-centric. What do you think about the same? Do you have some use cases since you consult so many startups?
Yes. So I'll give you a live example. Everyone knows about McDonald's, right? Mm-hmm. So before 1948, I don't know how many would know, McDonald's had more than 60 burgers, different types of burgers. So their production, the production cost was top of the ceiling. Back in 1948, when there was a recession, they actually segmentized their customers. They reduced the entire meal menu to just 5 burgers, thereby reducing their production cost and increasing the number of sales, because the customer just gets to choose from top 5, the most liked dishes by customers across the globe. And that's pretty much it. I mean, they reduce their production cost, they reduce their operation cost as well, because there's just 5 type of dishes in the menu, so they don't require a lot of workforce as well. And that way, they didn't require to reduce the cost of the menu, cost of each meal in the menu. But instead, they made profit out of, these limited production costs that they had and the operating costs that they controlled. So even during this recession, McDonald's was growing by 200+%, all right? So recession can be taken in 2 ways. It's just perspective, all right? It's not only about cost cutting. It's about going into the niche. It's about targeting the customer's need, managing it efficiently, and thereby, making money out of it.
Very right.
All right, so can you also share some practical experience from, your side, maybe?
Yeah. So recently, I remember a case which was of a shoe manufacturing company. So when we were struck by pandemic, there was a reduction in the demand of formal shoes. Nobody wanted to wear those formal shoes. People were staying at home, they were working from home, so they wanted to order more of the things that they can do at their home. So it will be furniture, it will be comfy slippers maybe. This shoe manufacturer, at the starting of pandemic only, was able to realize that since there is a lockdown, there is going to be a continuing situation like that. And he was very proactive in identifying that. He did not only think about his own company, because he was a wholesaler for those shoes. he spoke to the supplier who used to give him raw material. He said, you need to change your product now. You need to change your strategy now. You need to think about giving me raw material for a comfy material that can be worn at home. This way that supplier was succeeding. He then started asking his customers that you need to sell those comfy shoes. He then made sure that he convinces the supplier and the customer to sell those comfy shoes in the market, because that is going to be the future. Initially, 3-4 months, nobody bought them. But after them, since they realized this problem is gonna come, they started seeing there is a demand for these comfy shoes, and there's a surge of demand for those formal shoes. So identifying the problem proactively, thinking of a creative solution for them, I think the supplier, this shoe manufacturing company, and his customers all succeeded. So not only he saved himself, but he also contributed a lot to the value chain. So I think this approach needs to be there in everybody's head, that it is not only us, it is about the whole economy that we need to contribute to. It is about the whole economy where we need to add value, and you need to think creatively, think innovatively for the same. So what is your experience in this?
Sure. So I have been mentoring about more than 200, 300 startups in the last 6-7 months. And I would say, the most important thing that I've come across is there's a constant thirst for innovation, all right? And that comes with, there are two things. Innovation can become a success when there is actually a need for it. All right. So maybe to give you a live example, let's go back to Microsoft. All right, Bill Gates. Back in 1970s, all right, he had a company called Trafo Data. It was a company which was more or less like traffic data analysis and report. But when there was a recession in 1972, he incorporated Microsoft, which then built easy to use, affordable computers that can be used for office and personal use. All right, that was when there was no looking back, because that's, in terms of innovation, it's a great thing, and second, in terms of need, it is something that was the golden hour. I mean, it was something that was required by everyone, because in those recession time, there were a lot of new people coming out of big MNCs, starting their own ventures. They required computers. So that's when, Microsoft had captured a very big market share. Apart from that, we could also take an example of Adobe. Back in 1948, they had, they were offering different softwares for purchases. I mean, you would actually go for Illustrator. You could purchase only that product, all right? Now, it's a bundle. So if you're a creative designer, he provides you with, it was Shantanu Narayanan who had, created this bundle, Adobe Creative, back in 2011, where this actually now focuses only on people based on their job title and based on their requirements. You don't actually have to, go for every single tool, buy them, manage them, because just think about it. If you have a workforce of about 1,000 people, and out of which more than 50 people use tools, say of Adobe, won't it be, difficult or haphazard to manage, start from subscription to the status to collaboration, all right? So what if all of this comes under one roof, all right? So that was something where bundling up came up because of segmentization, because of customer feedbacks, and so on and so forth. So during recessions, I would suggest, getting back to the roots is something which is advisable, because it's at the end of the day, it's the customer who needs our services, right? So it's the, I would say, responsibility of a company or a pre-sales or a salesperson will be the right person to get back to the customer, get their feedback, be in constant touch, so that you could position your product in such a way that it actually serves as a use for mass production, all right? So mass usage. So that's some viable, solution during a recession that you can do from a company perspective. And maybe, if you would like to share some, insights in terms of other industries, because I was just talking about SaaS companies, Microsoft and Adobe. Maybe you could share your experiences as well.
So for me, you're right. I think everything in recession is centered around customers. If you just focus on your customers, you have won. It's about so many companies don't think this way. They say that, okay, recession is coming, we need to cut down the cost. Nobody is thinking on, can we increase the revenue somehow? Can we still sell something which is not being sold right now? Can we still sell something somehow? So I think it's not a problem of, paying money out of the pocket. It's more a problem of how you still fetch that money by addressing the necessities. The way human psychology works is nobody wants to cut on the necessity things. Everybody wants to still pay for that because necessity is a necessity. People will cut on things which are not needed. So start focusing on what is needed right now. To give an example, Airbnb, 2007-2008. Airbnb started its business in 2007-2008 recession. When all the hotels were giving high-priced rooms to their customers, cost per night was very high and people did not have the same spend capacity. Airbnb owners realized this, that there is a problem, that cost per night is very high. Address to that problem, how can we reduce that cost per night? They introduced Airbnb and people started using Airbnb more often. In fact, in recession, they created something that was addressing a customer's problem of not paying high cost per night. After the recession was over, this kind of became a trend. And even today, you see Airbnb is quite popular. So you can actually change the trends in recession. It's an opportunity for you to set something new, change some trends which have been followed for so far. Be innovative, bring something new on the table.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So forget Airbnb. Groupon, introduced in 2007-2008. It started giving, so people in recession don't want to offer the same services at reduced price because definitely it impacts the price integrity negatively. So what did Groupon do? Groupon goes to these different companies and says that maybe you cannot price it yourselves, but subscribe with us, pay us this much amount, and we'll say this is a discount from our side. So they started giving discount on the services. It was like the main supplier who was giving those services or products at a lower cost. But Groupon was taking it on them, saving those customers from price integrity issues. So actually, Groupon identified that, okay, there is a problem on the supplier side. On the price integrity, I'll solve that problem. That is my customer. I'll charge him for maintaining his price integrity and I'll offer those services at discounted price. Think about MailChimp. It introduced freemiums in 2007-2008 when the dot-com crisis came. So I think recession gives you an opportunity not only to think something new, but set some new trends.
Capitalize on the emerging needs of the customer.
Absolutely. Focus on the customer. It's not a problem of reduced spends. It's a problem to fetch money for the necessity, to identify what is the emerging necessity or to create a necessity for that sake. Yeah.
Awesome.
So would you like to tell us more about, in India, I see this problem is not there. In India, nobody is talking about recession. I think it's another story. So how do you guide your startups right now in India? What do you see over there in India?
All right. So as we just discussed before, this recession was caused due to inflation. All right. So when there is a recession caused by inflation, it's not the same. It changes regionally. It changes, based on the cultural communities that we have across the globe. But the best part back in India right now that we are actually in a growth phase because we are focusing, the entire government and the entire ecosystem, business ecosystem is now focusing towards startup, empowering innovative ideas, bridging gaps between, other firms, carrying out partnerships, mergers, acquisitions. The major thing that we have come across right now in India is support from all kind of MNCs, all kind of banks, angel investors, government schemes. See, recession is one part, that's right, recession is happening. But when you see in terms of inflow, venture capitalist funds, back in April, there was a dip of about 60%. We just had somewhere around 186 million US dollars in terms of investments. But you won't believe in the subsequent month, it was raised up to 886 million US dollars, which seriously means that, there is never a full stop to innovation, one. Second, you can always bridge problems with your innovative ideas, or you can actually contribute to other companies with your own ideas. That is one. And yeah, so talking about student startups, which I am handling, uh, it is not only about funding. There are a lot of startups which are bootstrapped. There are a lot of startups which take angel investors, not only venture capitalists. So it depends completely on the business type, one. Second, it is a habitat that the business is creating, all right? So when there is a new habitat that is being created, you need to churn a lot of money, all right? But for companies which create services, like agri-tech, I have a startup called Tradent. We work there. I worked as a mentor there. So what they provide is a EV tractor, all right, on a rental basis. Okay, so it's for the farmers over there. It's generally because there was a lot of devastation due to, there was a tsunami some time back. So that's when they introduced this EV tractors, which was, we just introduced it in Tirunelveli, in 3-4 districts in southern India. It was just 6 to 7 months down the line that, they had got a pan-India contract through John Deere, all right? So it's like you work towards a social impact and the entire world comes to you. I mean, that's how it works, right? So,
This reminds me of an interesting scenario about green energy. So look at it in this way. Russia invades Ukraine, and this creates a problem because the world has been separated from the rest. Today we have a problem that there are two things, West and the rest. And this has definitely created energy problems. And I always say now people would start moving towards green energy, because definitely there is a demand for that, but the supply is limited. Today GCC is definitely gaining out of that, but future we cannot survive like this. We need to find out ways of surviving with some other energy sources. So green energy is quite popular, and in my opinion, it will become more and more popular, and people should invest in those stocks.
Yeah,
Do you also think the same?
Absolutely. It started with EV, right? Tesla. Who doesn't know Tesla? So it started with EV. Then a lot of companies came in. Solar energy, for example, Lilium. It had secured about millions and millions of dollars. It makes a flying car which is powered by solar energy.
Okay.
It is now operating in Germany, Berlin, and Sweden.
Oh, something we thought in movies only.
Yeah, so it is. Yeah, there is still impact created by innovation, and people do love investing in innovative ideas. It may be a recession period or not, but ideas like these does have value any day in a time. All right. So that is one. And talking about innovations now, starting from EVs, now we have hydrogen-powered engines. Hyundai had recently released hydrogen-powered engine cars, which was patented. So, those innovations are making us live in coordinates with the ecosystem, with the nature. Because, see, recession doesn't only happen in terms of the primary reason, which we said is inflation and financial crisis. But apart from that, it can also happen due to the depletion of natural resources for certain industries. And, it changes from industry to industry. So, in my terms, I would say, it may be a recession, it may not be a recession, because this is not going to be permanent. It's just a temporary phase. But recession period will be the right time for you to invest in your own idea, invest in such a way that it fulfills the demands of the current customer needs, and recession also paves way for greater innovations to come tomorrow. Yeah.
So I think this is a good update on green vehicles, what is happening there.
Yeah, so do you like to add something as an end note saying, what do you think, or what are your thoughts, when you are in a recession and it's you who has to take a decision? Would you be, in a...
So I would split this problem across two things: what organizations should do and what general population as an individual should do. So today, in terms of recession, there is always an opportunity for general population also. They can invest in real estate with the limited funds that they have, because the prices will start reducing. There will be a market correction. Today we are seeing this boom in the market, but this is a bubble. This will crack. after this market correction. This will create recession, but definitely this will also give you an opportunity to invest in those real estate options where you were not able to. Now, if I am an investee, it's a problem for me. Recession is a problem for me. But what if I'm an investor? I'll get valuations lower and I'll get more value for the money I put in. Because there is a dearth of dry powder. That's the problem of people. And if I'm addressing that problem, I can ask more money for those problems today. So yes, as an investor, it's a success story for me. I can make a lot out of this recession. Think about it for people who lost their job. In COVID, so many people lost their jobs. What did they do? They started going to some big business schools and did their MBAs. I came in contact with so many such people. And look at them today. They are building a lot of money out of it. So it's about how you approach the problem, even for the general population. If they're approaching the problem with a mindset that, there is something and we cannot do anything about it, no, you have lost the game. But if you think of it, okay, there are so many people who are thinking like that they have lost the game, and you think, what can we do differently? Since all others are sleeping with this mindset, how can we wake up and we spark that energy that, okay, people identify this problem, we'll gain the whole market share out of it. If you deal with it in that manner, I think that really solves the problem. And this is the time to set new trends, change your pricing strategies, adapt to the customers, adapt your offerings to the customers, make a way out of it that you can create more successful models. You can earn out of this opportunity. For example, there was a dearth in the shipping business. The cranes, somebody who was a crane supplier said, okay, I will not be able to sell any more cranes to the customers in the shipping business. The other crane builder thought differently, and he said, no, because they cannot buy the cranes right now, I'll give them cranes on an hourly basis or on need basis on a subscription model. He changed everything to a subscription model from a transactional model. And today that's a trend. Today still it's prevalent. So this is the time to think how in future also you can monetize well by changing your pricing strategy. And right now you need to be very focused on how procurement is thinking. What is their approach to this? Going back to the organizational setup, it is always important to set up things as per the Nadler-Tushman model. It's my favorite model. It says that goals, actions, culture of the organization should all focus on the goal of the company. So right now, it is the role of the CEO to set everyone in the company towards a goal that you need to find ways, number one, to bring efficiency, and number two, to find what we can sell in the market. Every employee should work with that mindset. That partnership feeling should be there in every employee. There will be a role of HR also who will introduce this into the culture of the organization. There will be a role of CFO who will think of it. The pricing will still be same, but the offerings have to change, and we will implement these discounting measures. There has to be a role of CFO even in reducing the costs by bringing efficiency, not just by cost cutting. Nobody succeeds with the cost cutting.
Yes.
If you cut the costs, you're actually accelerating the problem if you're not doing it for the sake of efficiency.
Yeah.
So if you're cutting the cost, cut for the sake of efficiency, not for any other reasons. Many people just make some roles redundant that they actually need. They don't think differently. So first think about how you can increase your revenue. Once you have done that, then go backwards. How can I do this in a more efficient way? So this is a role of CFO in a company. Then there is a role of the sales lead also. He needs to be very well updated with what his customers' needs today are and how is he going to address them. Take the feedbacks daily. There is a role for the procurement team as well to set up some preset prices, long-term contracts with the supplier so that the price is locked in. Whereas have a subscription model for the customers which the sales will ensure. So you're back-to-back covered in this period of uncertainty. So I think if you approach it seeing an opportunity and you hedge yourselves with all the risks that are there, you can still win this.
Absolutely. On you with this. Yeah. So on the end note, maybe I'm pretty sure that it's just the perspective that matters during a recession. So silver lining of recession and the innovation that happens. It is how you perceive things. It is you need to connect back to the roots, analyze what is required, what are the emerging needs, cater to it, and that's it. It's all set.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.